Welcome to WMDpodcast.com/239, episode 239, which can be found at that website. Also, any podcast catcher, just search Weapons Meme Destruction, and any video platform, YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and X. David, on 239, we're talking about the Signal chat scandal. The biggest scandal in the history of American politics.
Really?
David, are you outraged? Are you outraged by the JV level conduct that's going on in the Trump administration right now?
Of course I am, Dane. Can't you hear it? Can't you see the consternation
that makes you a good person.
In my body? Like, yeah, of course. Of course, I think this whole world is going to hell in a handbasket because my party's not in control. And then, oh my God, the other side is doing things. Andrew, be scared of things. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So unless you've been living under a rock, you probably already know, because this has been dominating the headlines for about a week at this point, over a week by the time this episode comes out. Some top level officials in the Trump administration, including Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, Vice President J.D. Vance, DNI Director Tulsi Gabbard, and others, were a part of a group chat on the popular messaging app Signal. And they were sharing, or first of all, they were having some discussions about whether or not the United States should use their military to strike the Houthis, which is a separatist group in Yemen, who has basically shut down one of the primary routes of international shipping traffic through the Middle East. And the Houthis are harassing commercial vessels as well as military vessels. And it has, really ground to a halt a lot of commercial shipping traffic, which is harmful to economies around the world, right? When goods and services aren't moving, money's not being made, money is lost, et cetera, et cetera. So the discussion was amongst the Trump administration officials is, should we use the might of the U.S. military to keep the seaways open? Should we strike at the Houthis and open this back up so that, commercial shipping can resume and our military vessels can quit being harassed?
Would any of these trade routes have belonged to any of our fellow NATO members?
NATO, I don't believe so, because again, this is along the on the peninsula where Yemen and Saudi Arabia, and not the Iberian.
The Fertile Crescent.
Arabian Peninsula. I don't know. Anyway, geography's not working for me right now. But anyway, yes, it's there in the Middle East, and NATO is Europe. So no, not our NATO allies per se, but our NATO allies, because again, the estimates are somewhere between 15 and 30% of the European economy's commercial shipping flows through this area. Mm-hmm. So it does harm some of our NATO allies economically.
That's what I was speaking to.
Although it's not a direct military threat. But yes, you are correct about that.
So what I was going to say was, if we were doing this for economic purposes,
yes.
Why the fuck does it always have to be us?
And J.D. Vance would agree with you, which we'll get into.
Thank you.
So this whole conversation was happening where Secretary of Defense Hegseth was basically leading the charge to say, yes, we should strike the Houthis. And J.D. Vance, the vice president, was pushing back, saying, I don't like the looks of this. First of all, it's not in line with our America First message. Second of all, we're bailing out Europe again. And part of our messaging is Europe needs to carry its own weight. And so if this is more of a detriment to the European economy than the American economy, then let Europe handle it. To which Hegseth responded accurately that, well, listen, it's either the U.S. or nobody. Nobody else. There's no other military in the world or collection of militaries that has the, technical and also just practical know-how to be able to do what needs to be done here. So even if it's left up to Britain or France or Germany or any of the other stronger militaries in Europe, it ain't going to happen. So if these sea lanes are going to be reopened, it's got to be the U.S. Again, J.D. Vance pushed back. I still don't like the optics of it. I don't like us bailing out Europe again, et cetera, et cetera. And that's kind of, I guess, where we should start the conversation, because the fallout from all this, you're probably, again, unless you're aware of the story already, you're asking Dane, David, well, where's the scandal? What's wrong here? The reason why we know about this conversation is because somebody inadvertently added an Atlantic reporter to the chat. So this chat was just supposed to be high-ranking personnel in the Trump administration who are, have security clearances.
Isn't that interesting, Dane?
To be able to talk about
That's a
this
member of
stuff.
the liberal ended.
Yeah, a hostile media
Reporting.
outlet, yes,
Mhm.
hostile to Trump and in his administration,
Mhm.
was added to the chat, and he saw this, and he put two and two together after some aspects of the chat confirmed in the real world, and he saw the strikes playing out. He was like, oh shit, they were talking about war plans. I don't think I was supposed to see that. So that's
And
the scandal.
instead of going, hey guys, I'm going to find my way out of here, just between us, okay? He went the opposite way.
Yeah. The scandal is, how could Hegseth and the rest of the Trump administration officials, how could they be so reckless? Right? How could they be having this chat in a Signal group message? How could they not know that an Atlantic reporter was in the group? How could they possibly be sharing these highly classified details?
You know what that just made me think of, Dane?
Risk American lives. How could they be talking about that?
If you're just some dickhead that was like at their job, and then all of a sudden you pick up your phone and like just some guy working at like Office Depot or some shit, you're like, this is not Fred. What time? What F-18s? What? Like,
yeah.
That'd be pretty fucking. What if our administration just started like picking one random citizen to like let in on all of our operations? That'd be funny. Just to fuck with that guy for a day. Like, anyway.
So if you are a rabid Rachel Maddow content consumer, or New York Times, or The Atlantic, the only thing you're hearing about this story is that you should be outraged because Pete Hegseth, right, the DUI, Secretary of Defense, right, all the stuff they said about him during his confirmation hearings, is reckless and irresponsible. And this just goes to show that Trump's stupid and doesn't know how to pick people, and there are a bunch of amateurs up there and blah, 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 blah. That's the story. What you're not going to hear is the reason why you come to WMD Podcast is what David and I are going to talk about. Because there's several points to make about this. And let's just, again, start with the disagreement, which, again, remained cordial and was actually kind of productive, between Vice President J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth. So Vance pushing back on, essentially, he didn't say this, but essentially he's saying striking the Houthis in Yemen is not consistent with what we campaigned on, right? It's not America first. We're going to have a hard time explaining this one to the American people, that this is that it is America first, or that it's aligned with our America first objectives, yada yada yada, which is true. That is accurate. J.D. Vance is not being out of line or crazy by sticking to that. He's trying to say, listen, we were elected on a certain platform, and this isn't consistent with that platform. So I have reservations. To Hegseth's point, again, as Americans, whether we like it or not, we are the policemen of the world. Yes, an America First platform is going to pull back more on that. But to Hegseth's point, and for the people I don't think that this revokes your America First card, to make the point that Hegseth did, which is, listen, the only way these shipping lanes are going to be open is if we do it. We're the only ones with the tools and capability to do it. So if it's going to be done, we got to do it. Again, I don't agree with it. I don't think the strike should have happened. I don't think that we should be engaging any more in Yemen. Again, but that's just me. Hegseth's point is not completely out of line. But here's the thing, right? When people look back on, for example, the Lincoln administration, that's one of the first things that you'll learn, even in your educational malpractice U.S. history that you get in public schools, is Lincoln was such a great guy that he put in a bunch of people in his cabinet that disagreed with each other and disagreed with him. And that vibrant debate is what led to good decisions and good governance. Okay. Well, if you're going to take that line of logic and apply it to Lincoln, why wouldn't you apply it to Trump? He clearly has people in his administration that don't agree on big topics like this and don't agree with him, and they're hashing it out. They're doing what you would hope people of disagreement would do, let's talk about it and see what kind of conclusion we can reach. He should be lauded for that. No,
in fact, they should shut the fuck up about it, because it's actually going counterintuitive to their narrative, contradictory to the narrative. They make him out to be this king, this tyrant that just he surrounds himself with yes men. He can't ever be criticized, or else he has members of his own cabinet that are arguing. Last week, Elon Musk and Hegseth were arguing about shit. Like, he has people that are butting heads in his cabinet, And you want that because you want people pointing out all the flaws with potential ideas. That's how the enemy of bad ideas are good ideas. And the only way you get to those good ideas is if the bad ideas fight it out to become better. That's it.
Yeah.
You want people fighting like that. You want people arguing over missile strikes. That's exactly what you want.
Yeah.
So
from that perspective, this chat being leaked actually looks good for Hegseth, Vance, and the Trump administration. I'd argue better for Vance than anybody because, again, he's sticking to the principles that they campaigned on. But again, that aspect of it is good. Not going to hear any discussion of that anywhere. So setting that part aside, let's go on to the next point to make about this thing is, again, the standard narrative is, how could these irresponsible rubes be using Snapchat as opposed to, I don't know, some internal government secure chat? Well, that's good. That begs the question. Why would they? Well, when you listen to Elon talk about a lot of these government systems that Doge is digging into, they're absolutely fucking dinosaurs. They're not user-friendly. They're not near as secure as they claim to be. And they're just a completely miserable user interface. Which again, that government employees, if they can avoid it, don't use them.
They just use as an excuse the other week for social security. They're like, well, did you know that the programs that they were running, they weren't paying dead people that were 150 years old Social Security. It was just that something was wrong. It was an old, outdated system that still had them as their actual age, but just when it transferred over, it just didn't transfer right. So it said 150. It's like,
yeah.
So you just said in your argument that you were using outdated equipment.
Yeah.
That's malfunctioning. Right. And I'm supposed to go, oh, you're right. Rehire all those fucking idiots. Start USAID back up again. Like, we all made a big fucking problem here. Like,
yeah.
You're like, no, it wasn't working very well to begin with. That's why it sucked. That's why we needed to keep it. Like, what?
Yeah.
Again, this is just like throwing everything to the wall and hoping it sticks at this point. And it's sad to see people are still buying it, but whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're paying attention, this is par for the course. What do we talk about all the time? Incentives. The government has no incentive to get better, to update, to innovate, to do any of that kind of stuff, because whether the system works or not, you're still paying your 30%. And if you don't, you're going into a cage. So pay up, buddy. So again, that's not an argument that the government should be run like a business. That's just to say that you can't really fault people who are actually trying to pursue, again, them choosing to use Signal, which is, again, by all metrics, for all the messaging apps that are out there, it is widely known and held amongst people. Like, we have an aunt who's like really in the whole cyber world. Like, she just loves technology. She's good at it herself. She's obviously interested in reading up, all that kind of stuff. First place I ever heard about Signal was from her, because she's like, of all of the messages or of all the apps that have encryption and, you want security in your conversations and stuff, Signal's the best one. It's going to give you the strongest end-to-end encryption and all that kind of stuff. I don't know anything about all that. She did, took a recommendation, whatever. But again, the point is, on the market, right, where incentives matter and people are actually choosing to use services that are good or not, from a security standpoint, Signal's one of the best you can get. So the fact that government officials were forced to move to a private messaging app because they were trying to be secure in their communications should tell you really all you need to know. And if you want to be outraged about government and how it's used, why aren't you outraged by the fact that the system sucks so bad that high-ranking officials don't even want to use them for secure purposes?
And why don't
That's
you
where
hold
your outrage should lie.
People that you voted for before accountable for letting those things slip so much? What were they busy doing? Not upgrading their systems to make sure that the government was working appropriately. Why wouldn't they be incentivized to do that? Why has it been going on for this long, like Dane said? It's like, because like, I like this phrase that Dane uses a lot. It's not a bug, it's a feature. They didn't want to upgrade it because it was working it wasn't working, but it was working for what they wanted it to, put it that way. Within those systems, allowed little loopholes for them to exploit, which we're finding out. And you guys are coming out and saying, no, keep the loopholes in. That's how businesses run. It's like, no, it's not. And it shouldn't be. But that's what they're telling you.
And, the last point on this, both CIA Director Radcliffe and Tulsi Gabbard testified in front of Congress earlier this week about this whole situation. And I think it was Radcliffe. It may have been Gabbard, but I'm pretty sure it was Radcliffe who said explicitly
Harry Potter?
that it is in their protocol that Signal is an authorized app for CIA officials to use for secure communications. So, period, full stop. If you're getting outraged over the app used, again,
you're probably listening
find
to
another
Rachel
tree to bark
Maddow.
up.
Yeah. You're probably listening to CNBC or fucking CNN.
But David's bug feature distinction that we just talked about there leads us brilliantly into our next point, which is the inadvertent addition of an Atlantic reporter to the channel. So again, you have Hegseth, Vance et al. Choose to use Signal because of its security features, because they're going to be discussing sensitive information, right? Somebody, not them, not Tulsi Gabbard, I don't know if it was somebody in the chat.
I don't think any of them would even have a liberal fucking reporter in their phone, to be honest with you.
Right. Somebody adds them to the chat, and this is supposed to be inadvertent. Well, first of all, let's steel man it and let's take them at their argument. Okay, it's inadvertent. Well, then if it's inadvertent, and obviously Hegseth and Vance and them don't know, I mean, I don't know how the government messaging systems work, but I'm pretty sure people can also be inadvertently added to communications at that. So this idea that, Vance or Hegseth or anybody else has any culpability for somebody getting added to a chat that they didn't know, and the whole purpose of them being there is to be in a secure chat, kind of puts the blame on A, the person who added them, whoever that is, and B, like David was alluding to earlier, the reporter should have been like, I don't know what you guys are talking about here. I'm pretty sure I'm not supposed to be in this chat. I'm going to raise my hand to tell you I'm all here. So stop talking for a second while I leave the room. That's where the outrage lies. And again, back to David's bug feature thing. The reason why you're supposed to be outraged that they use Signal is because I will have no doubt whatsoever, if it were to come out, that the government chats are being spied on by government people. And by that, I mean the deep state. If you remember during Trump's first term, there was that story that broke where nameless, faceless people in the Trump White House were bragging to reporters saying, we're taking things out of the security briefings. We're taking things off of Trump's desk. And they were lauded by the CNNs and MSNBCs of the world of saying, oh, this terrible president who can't be trusted with anything.
We're fighting for freedom, faceless
that never showed up on a ballot is now dictating policy because they're controlling what the president is and is not seen. That right there, friends, is the deep state. If you think it's a conspiracy theory, somebody taking it upon themselves to undercut the elected representative of the American people, the United States president, the only politician that's elected by all 300 million of us, that is treason. That is the deep state. And I have no doubt that on these private or on these secure government channels, those are being spied on by the same types of people. Mm-hmm. So there's another reason why the Hegseths and Vance of the world would want to go to Signal to be so that they can't be spied on by the people in our own government. And so again, would you blame them? But that part of the story is not going to be talked about.
Why not, Dane? Why not? Would there be, again, incentives for them not to explain why they were there? Again, the best thing that I can do when something like this happens, just go ahead and assume that your enemy, again, going back to Sun Tzu, is not a fucking moron. That maybe or maybe not, they might have done a little research too. That being said, just doubt yourself. Just say, is it possible that the opposite of what I believe is happening?
Are we the baddies?
Are we the baddies? And then if you look at yourself with any amount of attention to change for the better, we'll just call it that, you would admit to yourself, I'm assuming in this, if you're agreeing with most of the reporting from CNN and MSNBC, you just voted for a guy without a brain for 4 years. And you have the fucking unmitigated gall to complain about unelected officials. Remove the plank from your eye before you look at the splinter in mine. And that's what you have to do, by the way, to get back in the good graces of all these people that voted your guy out. You have a lot of crow to eat and you haven't been eating any of it. And in fact, you're still doubling down on the shit that lost you the last election.
Yeah.
If you were really worried about totalitarianism, you would shut the fuck up and change course immediately, Democrats, but that's not what you do.
Yeah.
That's not what you do. You just like to complain until everyone else gives in because they can't deal with you anymore. Well, guess what? We're just not listening to you anymore. We're going to keep going forward. And if you guys want to jump on and, be the voice of reason sometimes, sure. But you're going to need to eat some crow and you're going to need to look at yourself and just go, hey, maybe my side lied to me because my side said that he was sharp as a tack. And maybe, just maybe, it's not my fucking fault that they did. Because I trusted them and they tricked me.
Yeah, for sure. And, that kind of leads us into our last point is the big one. There was classified information shared in this chat and how dare they and yada, yada, yada. And so we're going to share with you a screen grab and we'll read it for you audio only listeners.
Can we? Has it not been black-opt? Has it not been classified yet?
Hasn't been. Nothing's been taken
yet?
out. Yeah.
Whoa, that's crazy.
We're going to share because, again, this Atlantic reporter, after the fact, shared the entire chat out on social media and stuff like that. Because
on social media,
he's just the greatest guy ever. And
at least he went through the proper channels.
Again, I'm super glad he did because if anything, it looks good for the guys in it. For anybody that's not, completely succumbed to TDS these days. And in terms of it being a smoking gun of how irresponsible these people are, as you'll find, it's nothing. So anyway, here is a screen grab of the most important aspect of it from a did they or did they not should classified information. And I want to read it off for the audio only listeners. It's a little bit of a lengthier text, but it's apparently the timing of the strike that's going to happen. So this is from Pete Hegseth. He's telling the team, everybody else in the chat, he says, team update. Time now, 11:44 Eastern. Weather is favorable, just confirmed with CENTCOM, which is Central Command. We are a go for mission launch. 12:15 Eastern. F-18s launch first strike package. 13:45, which is for those non-military time people, that's 1:45 p.m. Trigger-based. F-18 first strike window starts. Target terrorist is at his known location, so should be on time. Also, strike drones launch. MQ-9s. 14:10, that's 2:10 p.m. More F-18s launch, second strike package. 14:15 p.m. Strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop, pending earlier trigger-based targets. And then 15:36 or 3:36 p.m., F-18 second strike starts. Also, first sea-based Tomahawks launched. Now, that is a play-by-play sort of timeline of when and how the strike was supposed to be carried out. Jeffrey Goldblum, I think was the name, or Goldberg was the name of the Atlantic reporter who, after seeing the news that these were the time that the strike took place, he's like, oh, they were sharing war plans. Oh, that's bad, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, the reason why I share that and the reason why I quoted in length is to ask you, dear listener, with that information that you just received, I would like you to tell me who were the exact targets, what were their specific geographic coordinates so you could know exactly where the strike was going to happen. I want you to tell me who the sources were that gave us those geographic coordinates and who the targets were. I want you to tell me the methods of how those were figured out. And I want you to tell me just any other thing that you could possibly glean from that information that would put American lives, American service personnel, or anything involved in the strike itself at risk. Please, go ahead. We'll give you some time. Nothing? You mean you can't tell me any of that information just based on some surface level information about what the strike platform is, namely F-18s, drones, and Tomahawks? Really? That didn't tell you everything that you needed to know about that strike? I am utterly shocked. But anyway, that's the classified information, allegedly, that we're supposed to be so outraged about that was shared again in a private chat amongst people with all the proper security clearances, except for one inadvertent ad of a hostile news reporter from a hostile media outlet.
I guess all these people that were so outraged about this must have never heard of the name Hillary Clinton or known anything about her private server or known anything about her hacked emails that then got 4 representatives killed. They must have never heard about that. Oh, well, maybe next time, right? They'll get him next time, right, Dane? We'll get it all figured out, but we need to keep doing things the same way that we've been doing them. That'll do
that's
it.
That's what they've been doing. They've been using the Hillary Clinton thing to run victory laps, and they'd say, "Oh my God!" And these stupid Republicans had the nerve to get mad at Hillary for her emails, and look at what they're doing. Well, first of all, as David pointed out, actual deaths came from the Hillary emails. Not to mention all the pizza party stuff that was kind of weird, and we still don't have all the information on, but we're not going to get any further down that rabbit hole. So yeah, I would say in terms of real provable human harm, yeah, the Hillary emails were far worse than this, because now all we have is them jumping up and down screaming of this could have been a bad thing, or this could have resulted in deaths, yet no deaths happened, and they can't point out how any of that information is connected back to specific individuals who were placed in harm's way. So
it's almost, Dane, if I could be so bold, it's almost like they're making this into something that it's not. For a reason.
Shocked that they would do such a thing.
That's what. And then really when I was talking to people that were bringing this up this week, I was just like, there's something more here. There's got to be something more here. You guys can't be this mad about this. Like, what the implications here aren't even implications that are really okay. So they use Signal to text each other. That's it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I got a lot more shit to do with my day than to be upset about that kind of shit. So I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna go live my life and not be told that I need to be outraged all day about something and then buying into it hook, line, and sinker. That's what I'm going to go do.
Yeah.
Now, you and Zoe can go freak out about text messages and who should be using what and when, where, and why, and doing their goddamn whatever. But I'm going to be out here with my boy. She didn't even mention his name in the video breakdown, so I'm going to be with the Republican
Zoe's
dude
ex.
from Indiana that votes independent. So I'll be with him. Enjoying a beer, talking about how crazy that bitch Zoe was.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, David, of much ado about nothing, big giant nothing burger, is if you are a TDS afflicted individual,
there's a hotline you can call.
Yeah,
1-800 shut the fuck up.
If you are a TDS afflicted individual, right, everything in your brain is telling you, in addition to being evil and a wannabe dictator tyrant and yada, 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 that Trump is at bottom, stupid, incompetent, whatever. So you get a headline like this, that government officials use Signal message and talk about war plans. And that's really all you need to know to confirm all of your biases. See, I knew that big dummy would hire a bunch of smaller dummies underneath of him, and I knew those smaller dummies would be reckless and they would do stuff like this. So this just proves my entire worldview correct, despite the fact that laundry list of things that we just talked to you about in this episode, disprove that not only is this not only a nothing burger, but that if anything, it looks good for the side that you're trying to paint as bad. But again, when you have TDS, that's all you see. All you see is orange everywhere you look, and it enrages you. And for those of you for whom that is the case, I know you're not going to hear this because you're not even listening or watching this podcast, but maybe your family members can reach out and save you. But may God have mercy on your souls, because I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, believe that's no way to live. It's not good for you. It's not good for your health. It's not good for the people around you. Get help. Okay? Get help.
It's not too late. You can always choose to not buy into it, or just buy into it less. Just listen to it. And then when they say you need to be outraged, just, I'm not going to be outraged about that. Click. Let me go off and live my life. So much simpler. But Dane, where can they find episode 239 of Weapons of Mean Destruction podcast?
You can find this episode at wmdpodcast.com/239. They can get the audio only at Weapons of Meme Destruction. Butcher that one. It's been a while. They can get the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. They can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and X. While they're over at wmdpodcast.com, they should definitely join our email list to always stay in contact with the show. While you're over there, check out the Support Our Work tab to see how you can support us financially with either individual one-time of any amount or monthly recurring donations of a predefined amount. Or they can do all the free stuff like subscribe, share, comment, turn on notifications. On any platform you find us, do it on every platform you can, because that always helps, even if you only get us on, or even if you only consume our content on one. And other than that, good old fashioned word of mouth. Get in those Signal group chats and tell everybody you know that WMD podcast is the place to go. If
and
they
by
want
that
any
Atlantic
sort
reporter,
of,
he likes complaining about nothing. So let's let him in.
yeah, if you want any sort of objective, to the extent that human beings can be objective. Again, we all have our own biases, but we try to be as objective as possible, try to be truth tellers. If you want that sort of content and that sort of breakdowns on these big news stories of the week or day or month or year or millennium, WMD podcast will always be here for you. So with that being said, David, 240 next week. Tell the people how much you love them.
If the planet's still here, we'll be here for 240. But until next week, guys, as always, stay safe. More importantly, stay free.